Oh, we're live.
Huh. Welcome to Dateline NBC. There went my algorithm.
Yeah.
We don't
get a copyright violation to flag, so.
Oh, surely there's a hashtag somewhere that we can use. Welcome to Dark Ozarks, everyone. And hi, Lisa.
Hi, Josh. It's been a long day, I think, for both of us.
It has been a long day. Excited for it to be Wednesday night. Of course, we look forward to our essentially a video podcast on Wednesday nights. This is absolutely a highlight, and we thank you guys for tuning in live and or clicking play. And we do encourage you to like and subscribe to State of the Ozarks. I mean, Dark Ozarks.
I say Ozarks as well on Facebook, but
yes.
We also encourage you. There will be an expanded pre-recorded video on this topic uploaded probably tomorrow. So
yes,
subscribe to the channel so you can catch all of them. Absolutely,
and as is already evident, it's anybody's guess what falls out of my mouth. Considering everything that's gone on today, I'm just happy to be back in our space here to talk off the cuff on two of our favorite subjects.
Yes, cryptids and UFOs. I think we should start with UFOs.
I am good with that. And there's UFOs, ufology. It's definitely a big topic. Mm-hmm. That is obvious. Full disclaimer, I have not seen a UFO to my knowledge anymore. I know you have had experiences.
I've had one, yeah, one particular, yeah.
And know a number of people who have had mm-hmm. experiences, verifiable and solid people. I trust them as witnesses, etc. Of course, our primary focus is on a phenomena within the boundaries of the Ozarks, yes. In large portions of Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, as well as small portions of Kansas and Illinois. Mm-hmm. You'd probably start a couple of fights in terms of where the actual boundaries and borders are. And
we'll save that for another video.
Yes, we will. And then, of course, we also have the privilege, I consider it to be a privilege, to work and do investigation and research on what we classify as the boundary areas of the Ozarks region. And that gives us the capacity to connect with, well, first of all, nothing happens in a vacuum.
No.
That the history of the Ozarks, the people of the Ozarks, the phenomena and the lore of the Ozarks, it's all connected, not only across the Ozarks, but it's connected to points outside of the Ozarks.
Yes. Very much so. It's very much a tapestry.
It is. And in some cases, those connective lines go a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of the Scots-Irish, in the case of Irish immigrants or German immigrants coming in the 19th century and later, we're connecting lore and sometimes phenomena all the way back to Europe and elsewhere, and
as well as Native American.
Very much so. So you have, all of these points. So sometimes we talk about things that are just in the Ozarks. Sometimes we talk about things in terms of their relationship to points far outside the Ozarks, but are connected via culture. And then in some cases, we're dealing with these really cool boundary spaces, these threshold spaces that oftentimes have tales of their own, but have tales that connect in some way. We see that a lot when we get into noir history with folks like Jesse James and Bonnie and Clyde, who obviously were traversing all over the place, in and out of the Ozarks, so on and so forth. So all that to be said, for several years running, and I hope to go back, had the opportunity as a journalist to cover the Eureka Springs UFO conference.
Mhm.
And first of all, amazing experience, and made some great contacts and some good friends, and really eye-opening to me. So while I have not had an experience, I've had the opportunity to write extensively about the collective phenomena and the people who delve deeply or are in some way connected to the phenomena.
Yes, yes. And both sides of that equation are important. Accumulating that kind of information. And I think I think a lot of people might be going, UFOs and the Ozarks, that doesn't seem to fit, because it may not be on their radar that there are a lot of experiences within the Ozarks, but there actually are.
Yeah.
Actually, the southern part of Missouri is one of the hotbeds of UFO sightings over the past 70 years, along 38th parallel, actually clear across the country. And, if you go on a little further west, it hits a little place called Roswell. So,
and at least according to reports, we essentially have an alleged Roswell incident in 1941.
yes. Girardeau incident, yes.
6 years before Roswell.
Yes, very similar in detail as far as the account. It's hard to empirically pin down. I mean, there are accounts from witnesses, and as in a lot of these, particularly early cases, they tended to come out publicly a little later on. So people often would say, oh, they're cashing in, or, oh, they're just, parroting Roswell, etc. But the people involved were very vested in the community leaders. One was a sheriff, and one was a pastor, who were witnesses. And so even later on, I find it hard to believe that they would have fabricated something that could have affected their credibility and their legacy.
And I think that's a very important point. There's something else that I think is interesting, and I'm not ready to jump into the Piedmont incidences quite yet, but
we may do that on the pre-recorded one for people.
Yes. But for people who might not be familiar with the area, the Cape Girardeau UFO incident in 1941 and the Piedmont incidences, series of incidences in the 1970s, the proximity between Cape Girardeau and Piedmont and that region is right next to each other.
Yeah, it's not very far at all. So it's I would say you would have to say it was a cluster of events geographically. So which makes Cape Girardeau even more interesting, that it predated that, and accounts of it were talked about before Piedmont. So
Yes.
But Piedmont, by all accounts, the witnesses and their experience is very independent of, and it's not clear that they even were aware of the Cape Girardeau incident. So,
and considering the years separating them, it's very realistic to assume that many of the witnesses in the 1970s were unaware of the report from 1941. And something that just, I was thinking about as we were talking, focusing on the 1941 Cape Girardeau incident, there's quite a bit of comparatively superficial information that's floating around out there on the internet, and about the I still, I mean, I know why, but I mean, it's the 1941 Roswell incident in Cape Girardeau. Even though Roswell came 6 years later, but that's pop culture for you. There, as with many of these types of events, there's a number of things that give individuals reason to challenge the allegations.
It's definitely not,
it's
clear cut.
No, it's very, and for people who might be, newcomers to Dark Ozarks, the point that we always come back to is sometimes there are no easy answers, and existing within those threshold spaces, whether it's a physical border space, geographical, or whether it's a border space of thought and consideration, that's where I think it's, regardless of what actually happened, there's very interesting and powerful things that can occur within that space and within the discussion, and just holding the possibilities within play. And in the case of the Cape Girardeau incident, and this is what I find, these push and pull, these push and pull aspects of this that are really interesting to me, is that there are many hallmarks of the situation that are up for debate, or elements of the story that appear that they may have been embellishments added to the story. Probably the most notable one is that Vice President Harry Truman was somehow on the scene shortly after the crash.
Right, and he was, as a senator, he was a senator at the time, and it's not clear from official records whether he was in the area or not. So, right.
So there is admittedly some sketchy elements of the allegations, but there are very interesting elements that to me suggest something hitherto inexplicable occurred.
Yes, it definitely does seem that. And since we are doing the live right now, I think let's flip over and talk about cryptids just a little bit before we finish, and then there'll be a lot more of this discussion in the video uploaded tomorrow.
Yes. So this is our intro. I'm excited about continuing the conversation on the next video. Also excited to talk about cryptids. And there are a lot of cryptid reports in the Ozarks.
There are. It surprises a lot of people that there are, and that probably the most common one is probably actually Bigfoot or Bigfoot type creatures. I think we've become so conditioned by pop culture and media to associate Bigfoot with either the Pacific Northwest or swampy areas of Louisiana and Florida, and that people just don't think about those tales occurring in the middle of the country.
No, I think that is comparatively fair. I really do. It's the other thing that is interesting, particularly in regards to the Ozarks region, individuals who, the heavily trafficked corridors of the Ozarks largely skirt regions that are, in all fairness, vast, and in some cases we're talking very low population areas.
Yes, and have in that respect have a lot in common with areas of the Pacific Northwest and bayous and Everglades and southwest Arkansas, outside Texarkana and Fowl.
Oh, Boggy Creek.
Yeah.
Neat location too. And I think that as is the case with much of the Ozarks, if you aren't paying attention, it's very easy to miss the significance.
Yeah, I think that's right. And of course, I think that's fair with any part of the country that can happen, but it really does. But Sasquatch is not the only kind of cryptid that gets reported. Big cats, which cause lots of controversy.
Oh yeah.
And then you get other kind of accounts that sort of verge on, is it cryptid? Is it more of a almost folkloric kind of creature? Is it physical? Is it spirit? That kind of thing. More so than people probably are comfortable with thinking about.
I think so, and certainly areas that for us I think are of particular interest is digging into very traditional Celtic, Anglo-Saxon lores, as well as really taking a lot of respectful consideration of Native American lores, particularly Cherokee, Osage, Delaware, and a number of others. People often who are not familiar with the region do not realize that the bulk, really the bulk of the Oklahoma Ozarks is former Indian territory and is current reservation.
That's very true. And that, traditionally, in the Ozarks, you had over 60 tribes.
Yes.
So there was an influence from a number of sources there. So
yes. And we've hunted down, we've got essentially, fire spirit recollections from the Neosho area.
Yes.
That does not directly, quote unquote, line up with a number of the established lores. So
it's there.
Yes, exactly. And it's and something that I really enjoy, and I think it's easy to get thrown off by this when you're doing research, but you think you've got all the research figured out, and then there'll be a bit of information that will just throw that out of the water or contradict it within a specific space.
Yes, but that makes it interesting.
It does. It's honestly one of my favorite parts, and what I for us certainly as historical, paranormal, and researchers, both, because we are both on this, and for people who again are new and don't necessarily know in terms of our day jobs. I'm a full-time journalist, you're a full-time attorney, so this is we bring a lot of our backgrounds into this work.
Yes.
And it's very easy to get tunnel vision about a thing. I do think this is relevant in terms of our cryptozoology. Anyway, I can't talk tonight. Can't imagine why. Was in the dentist chair for like 2 hours earlier today, so still a little loopy. That's my disclaimer. I appreciate it. I need it tonight. But it's very easy to get tunnel vision and get really invested in, say, a particular theory,
Mhm.
or a specific report. And then if there's something that seems to be contradictory to that, it's also easy to get upset about it.
Yeah. And we've
And
seen that happen.
absolutely. And I understand it.
Mhm.
But and I understand the importance of personal investment, and the sense that folks get, really a part of them becomes a part of the research and the investigations. That said, we're not dealing with hard and fast rules in many of these cases.
No, we have to remember we're dealing with experiences and interpretations. So,
Mhm.
I
And
think that may be a good place to jump off at. We should make a plug that we will be at the Ritchie Mansion in Newtonia, Missouri this Saturday for an event. You can go to paranormalsciencelab.com for tickets.
yes,
It supports the house, and it's going to be a good time. And we'll have other events coming up. And we appreciate everybody, and subscribe to the channel and keep tuning in.
absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Alex, our guy in charge.
Okay, yeah, he is. He's leading the blind tonight.